What's up, you guys? I know it's early for a show. And yes, I am back from D.C. I'm back from Hagerstown, Maryland. Man, it was a great weekend being up there with the big boys, the big rigs, the 18-wheelers as they're doing their thing and circling the Beltway, circling D.C. over and over to make their statement. I'll get into all that, but today I know I'm starting the show early because I want to have a special guest on today, Dallas Hurd. So Dallas Hurd is he's a senator of Oregon, okay? But there's been some things, and yesterday I'm on my way back home from the convoy, from the People's Convoy out there in D.C., and I start getting these messages that there was some stuff taking place. So without further ado, what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring Dallas Hurd on because a lot of people have been speaking about what's going on. They don't know what's happening. They heard the stories. So I'm going to let the man speak for himself and let you guys know what's taking place. Dallas, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. So So yesterday, I'm on my way back, and I see this letter that you put out to the public, that you have resigned from being the chairman of the Oregon Republican Party. Now, I don't know, do you have that letter on you by chance?
I mean, I could pull it up, I'm sure, yeah.
Now, because some people probably don't know or don't even know what's going on, so I'd like, if you could read it, if you didn't mind, and then obviously we can get into it and talk about why you came to this decision.
So you'd like me to read it word for word?
If you don't mind, yeah.
Sure, yeah. So it starts, members of the Republican Party of Oregon, that as of March 11th, 2022, I will no longer be able to serve you as your chairman. My physical and spiritual health can no longer survive exposure to the toxicity that can be found in this community. There are dozens of you men and women that I truly love and admire. I greatly appreciate you. I greatly appreciate who you are, and I am extremely grieved that I will no longer serve and help you save Oregon from the ever-advancing Democrats. I must warn you, good people, that in our party that we... Sorry, I'm having a hard time reading it. It's on my phone, so it's kind of small.
Right.
I must warn you, good people in our party, that we truly have an equal, if not greater evil than the Democrats walking among us. Communist psychological warfare tactics are being used daily within the party. These tactics are being used to destroy anyone of true character who would oppose the man who introduced them into our community for the last 20 years. The endless slander, gossip, conspiracies, sabotage, lies, hatred, pointless criticism, blocking of ideas, and mutiny brought against my administration has done what I never thought possible. They have broken my spirit. I can face the Democrats with courage and conviction, but I can't fight my own people too. It is clear no amount of political success, hard work, honesty, and self-sacrifice will ever be enough to garner the lasting support of a strong and consistent majority of people who currently represent this party across the state. I can say I've given my best to save the state I love, but when a true servant leader recognizes that his people would rather attack and question him rather than follow, it is time to say goodbye. Thank you from the bottom of my heart to all of you amazing men and women that gave your all to help me save this party and move Oregon forward. I bitterly regret that my body and soul were not able to withstand the endless assault. I hope you will guard your hearts. I hope you will guard your hearts against the wickedness in our party and keep fighting the good fight for our children and those who truly love this state. Those who have worked to destroy me are so determined to dominate/control the party that they are seemingly willing to sink the ship if that is what is required for them to take back control. I don't have the will left at this point to fight and resist such reckless hate while also being crushed by the Democrats in Salem as I fight for our freedom. We must be absolute in our focus on winning the 2022 election cycle in Oregon. If we don't beat the godless left this November, we will be exposing our children to a future that is not worth living in Oregon. I will say that ignoring the wickedness within our organization would be a mistake. It must be exposed and removed if this party is to be relevant in supporting Republican candidates in a meaningful way that leads to actual election victories. I hope you find a way to purge this darkness from the ORP, and I will be praying for your success and protection. I believe God will give me health and inspiration to return to the battle for Oregon in the years to come, but I desperately need a long season of rest so I can fully invest in my wife and children. May God, Christ, and the Holy Spirit bless all of you who truly love to. The Holy Spirit bless all of you who truly live to love others. Sincerely, Dowsard.
I could tell that was hard for you to kind of go back through, so I apologize. But
yeah, I mean, it's been the worst 13 months, definitely, of my life, and I would think probably for most anybody that's not living in a war-torn third world country, or for that matter, for the children in our own country that live in homes that are unstable and nobody loves them and nobody's protecting them and take care of them. So those folks have it worse than I've ever had it. I can admit that. But in the normal American life, this has been a really bad last 13 months. I mean, I liken it to being the moon being hit by meteors from all sides.
Wow.
It's the Democrats. It's the people from within. It's, and there's a lot more going on than folks realize behind the scenes. And like I was saying to you earlier, Quincy, I admit it. I'm a bit of a Boy Scout. I fully embrace the fact that there's evil in this world and that there are people that are bent on doing evil.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to fight evil with evil. And so it's kind of like going into a street fight with your hands handcuffed behind your back against people who are not handcuffed. And so it was a real struggle.
So it was just really, just a lot of the buildup. And like you said, you did mention this, that people don't know the depth, the behind the scenes stuff of what takes place. And you mentioned the fact that you have the Democrats and your own party aiming at you. So could you and would you be willing to explain what you mean by that for people who don't maybe understand what goes on behind the scenes? Because I got a little glimpse of it when I came to I don't know what that thing was that I came to recently. But I got just a glimpse of it. And I saw how I saw the fighting and I couldn't believe it. It was, yeah. So could you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah. So the meeting you were present at, where you came up and talked to me afterwards, and I appreciate, the nice, kind words you gave to me afterwards, because that was a bad day.
Yeah.
That was February 5th. We were having a state central committee meeting, which is the delegates from across the state so the way the process works for your listeners, registered Republican voters every 2 years vote for who their precinct committee persons are going to be in their local area. Most people don't realize that they're casting votes for this kind of stuff. Most people actually leave the ballot empty on this section because they don't know who the people are that they're seeing on this, and they don't understand what the position is.
Right.
And so, but regardless, whether you get 5 votes or 500 votes, people get elected to these positions in the party called precinct committee persons. And then from there, those volunteers who are elected, they don't get paid anything. They vote for who Republican leadership will be at a county-by-county level. So the county that they are a precinct committee person in, they go to their organizational meeting every 2 years after the November general election that's happened in that election cycle for actual government itself.
Mm-hmm.
And they vote on who the chair, vice chair, and if they have enough registered Republicans in their county, based on the formula we have, they have what we call additional delegate votes. Roughly 130 delegates go to these meetings at the state level, the one you came to. Right. And those meetings, we vote on who the state leadership's going to be. So like the CEO or chairman, like I was, or issues like the one you came to. We actually were taking up an issue to debate that I had brought forward as the chairman, where I had brought forward a package of information on the concept of allowing non-affiliated voters to opt in and vote in the Republican primary for Republican candidates. Because I had done a lot of research on who non-affiliated voters were. There are about 1 million strong in our state, which is a much larger voting bloc than the Republican registered voters are, and it's almost tied exactly with the Democrat side. Anyway, long and the short is that those types of meetings are what make the party relevant and important if things are being done right. And what you saw that day was the faction that I call the shadow party. It's the people that myself and other senators who ran for these leadership positions, chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer, we pushed out in large part the old leadership, but not the key individual in Solomon Yu, who's the national committeeman. We pushed out everybody else, though, because he was not up for election. They all were, the chair position, vice chair, and all that. We pushed them out of the way and won the election through a lot of hard work and, frankly, off of our previous success as actual leaders in this state. We're the senators that led the walkouts to stop cap and trade and denying quorum, with the Democrats pushing them back on their radical agenda. And so there was a lot of good reasons. And here, just one second. My kids are coming upstairs. Just one second.
All good. So in case you guys are just tuning in, I'm speaking to former chairman of Oregon Republican Party, Dallas Hurd, who resigned yesterday from being the chairman of the Republican Party here in Oregon.
All right, I'm back.
All right.
So what you got to see that day at that February 5th meeting was
a lot.
Oh, man. I don't know what else to call it but evil. I just got to be honest. It's funny. I've been battling with the Democrats now for going on almost 8 years in the House and the Senate. And, we all know household names like Kate Brown, right?
Right.
A lot of people know who former Speaker Tina Kotek is, current Senate President Peter Courtney. I mean, a lot of people call them, the worst of the worst. Well, I got to be honest with you. Those people have sensationally better manners and are far less violent than the people I've been fighting that are in this small faction that is just truly disturbing in what they are willing to do within the body, within the family, if you will.
Right.
The gossip, the lies, the slander. They don't produce anything but hate and vitriol. And what's really scary about it is they use these psychological warfare tactics that I referenced in my letter. And I would encourage your listeners to look up psychological warfare tactics and really truly understand what that is. Gaslighting is a word or a term that a lot of people are becoming more familiar with. Look up Merriam-Webster's dictionary's definition of gaslighting. Look up logical fallacies, misinformation, deception, unreasonable demands, public humiliation of people. That's what these types of individuals who really seem to operate with no conscience.
Right.
And that's a real disadvantage for me in a fight. It's not a fair fight when I have to deal with people who have no conscience. I am just fundamentally not willing to engage in these kinds of tactics because my Lord and Savior would he'd probably curse me. I wouldn't lose my salvation over it, not the way I look at life and salvation, but he would definitely punish me in some form or another because I'd be doing evil against his creation. And so, you got to watch it. I just stood up there and did my best, but I clearly really didn't know what to do against such reckless hate.
Yeah, it was quite amazing to experience because in between me speaking to you, I spoke to some people in the back, and I'm like the little dude. They didn't want to speak to me or even hear me. And matter of fact, I think the guy you were speaking of, he's Asian or Korean or something. I don't know what descent. You mentioned his name a few minutes ago.
National Committeeman Solomon Yu. He's originally born and raised and migrated from China. Right.
Okay. So I was talking to him outside, and just some of their thoughts. It was just it was killing me. And then at one point they started to walk away. They even told my wife, because my wife was getting into it, and they were like, we are not out here to debate with you. We thought we was going to have a conversation with you, and started to walk away from us. And I said to them, I was like, you were just inside debating and arguing with Dallas Hurd. So what's the difference? And then they said, well, there's a time and place for everything. I'm like, okay, so but that's your guys' senator. You guys, bro, it was crazy. It was crazy, and I couldn't believe it.
Well, it's a show. That's the thing, is that if they encounter people in a private conversation that actually have the intelligence or the experience and knowledge and understanding of these types of issues to actually debate them, then they're going to walk away because there's no value in it for them, because they're not about changing hearts and minds for the greater good of growing freedom and prosperity and fighting back against the radical leftist ideology, whether it's progressivism, socialism, communism, whatever you want to call it, it's kind of all in the same. They're not interested in having that conversation with you or others that actually understand these things well enough, because it's not aiding their propaganda message. It's what you saw in the meeting when the camera's rolling and the mics are on. It's more like a Hollywood set to them. It's not actually about digging into the soul of people and informing them and educating them on the facts and then helping people make the right decision. Because I think it was obvious. Like I obviously was yes for allowing non-affiliated voters
Right.
to opt into our primary, because I had done hardcore research beginning back in October when the chairman from West Virginia first brought it to my attention at our state platform convention in Bend. I had previously not even really given the thought of doing something like this, but it had worked in West Virginia. And so I wanted to at least give it a good look and see if it was something we should do. And so, the logical fallacy side of things. So I don't know if you'll remember, but for listening, at one point, a person from their faction in the party there came up to the microphone during this debate over whether we would allow non-affiliateds to vote or not, and basically insinuated that I was an unethical, immoral man.
Yes.
Because the bylaws, and there was
hold on. You're saying this, and it's your own party, you guys. Keep this in mind, people who are listening. Someone said this to him. It's the same party, and on top of that, you are the senator of Oregon.
Of Southwest Oregon.
Or Southwest Oregon, right.
But so, and it just goes to show you, though, folks, it doesn't matter whether you're going to church, you're part of a political party, the Lions Club, football teams, whatever. Just because somebody wears the same jersey as you doesn't mean you're on the same team.
Right.
Like there is the war that is unseen in the spiritual side of things. Like people can brand themselves however they want to. I could say that I walk on water and that I'm the world's greatest human being, but if my actions show that I'm actually a sociopathic, lying, abusing, horrible person, you should go with my actions, not what I brand
not with the words. Right. Yep.
Right. And so with these folks, what the logical fallacies tactic, they get up there, and there was several of them, but in one of them, they said, basically Dallas Hurd is an immoral, unethical man because our bylaws say that you have to give notice of a meeting like this and a decision to be taken up like this at least 30 days before the meeting happens. And he only gave us 31 days notice. So let's stop and think about that for a second. They made it sound like I did something morally or ethically wrong, okay? Mm-hmm. Because the rules said I had to give notice at least 30 days before the meeting, but I gave it 31 days. It's kind of like saying you're an immoral and unethical person because the speed limit is 55, and you went 54 miles an hour. You were only 2 miles away from breaking the law, and that makes you a bad person.
Right.
It's you hear it right now as I explaining. You're like, how could anybody be taken by that? But I'm here to tell you, and Quincy got to bear witness to it, when you're this determined to do sick, nasty stuff, and you're getting people all fear-mongering is another tactic. And so it's all like a 1, 2, 3 step strategy. It's part of the art of war, the book, The Art of War. Yep. I mean, these people, I'll give them credit. They're very good at confusing people. And that's what it's really all about, is getting people stirred up, fearful and paranoid and freaked out about, what could be. And the facts don't matter after a while. Everybody's just so torn up inside and confused that they're just like, well, no action is better than any action at all.
Right. And another thing I noticed, because you proposed something, and I don't even know, it was more of a favor, I guess, or just you wanted to ask them if they would be in support of you running again, right? And running for governor. And they acted like they couldn't even just raise their hand simply to say yes or nay. It was like this whole big dramatic event. People started arguing with each other. So this is not the place. Even like cursing you, like, how dare you bring your propaganda or whatever to this meeting. That made no sense either. I'm like, it wasn't like an official vote. He was just asking basically for your guys' blessings, and they took it to another whole level. And I seriously couldn't believe what I was witnessing, Dallas, that day.
Yeah, no, you weren't alone. I mean, it was a devastating moment for me, the whole day. So the history of that for your viewers is, when I ran for chairman, the same faction that has been tormenting me since I won the party position. And there's a lot of emails and stuff that I'll try to get to later, when, Quincy, to show you like just how these people operate. They have been repeatedly, so projection.
Right.
We see the radical left do this a lot. And
Yep.
to be honest, the tactics we're talking about here with these individuals in the Republican Party system and leadership side of things use identical tactics to what we see the radical left use against conservatives and people who love freedom in this country. It's identical. It's not an ideology thing. It's not about liberal or conservative. It's about people who will do whatever it takes to win at all costs. There's no conscience in this. So the situation with the governor's race was, I frankly just didn't trust my own ambition. And so when I ran for this position, they had been accusing me as they desperately tried to cling to their positions of influence over the party, because they knew that it was almost certain that I was probably going to win. And so because I was campaigning harder than them, I actually have success in my political background. I've actually won elections and helped other people win elections. I've been part of leadership teams that have actually stood up for what is right in the face of great evil and stood the test, like the walkouts where we were facing $500 a day fines and had to flee the state. These are all things that none of these people were talking about that have been controlling the party before me and almost uncertainly now look to be positioned to control it again. None of those parts of...
What happened? His audio cut out. His audio cut out. Dallas, are you there?
Success.
Oh, there he is.
As an organization in the who's who crowd, whatever you want to call it, political inner circles of Salem and politics in the state, fundamentally know that participating heavily in the Republican Party organization, especially at the state level, is a really good way to just ruin your life. That's conventional wisdom coming into this. There was no previous interaction between the House and Senate Republicans and the actual party leadership itself. Think about that. I was in the legislature for 6+ years, and never once did I have an actual elected party leader, chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer, national committeeman, or committeewoman not once, ever reach out to me as a multi-year House and Senate member. My caucus leader, Senator Herman Bertschiger, was the vice chair of the party. Now he's filling in as the chair to replace me, and thank goodness, because Herman Bertschiger is a great man. He was my caucus leader for the Senate Republicans who led us on these courageous walkouts to stop the Democrats several years back here. Herman had been in the legislature 8 years. He was the Senate Republican caucus leader, and he had never once been reached out to by those people. So
that is crazy.
It is crazy. And so the governor's thing was, they said, well, this is why Hurd's doing this. It's all some long game, whatever. Well, that doesn't make sense, because if I'm working for the party, which is free, meaning I don't get paid anything for it, they don't reimburse me for any of my travel, I fundraise, and I spent I donated, and it's relevant. Normally I wouldn't want to bring up this kind of stuff, but it's relevant right now because Solomon Yu, who's the head of this shadow faction, to the best of my knowledge and research, he's given less than about $300 lifetime to the Republican Party. I gave nearly $10,000 last year alone to the Republican Party personally.
And what's it for? You're giving money. What's it for? What's it helping with? What's it doing?
So just 1 second. I got to tell my.
Oh, it's all right. It's all right. It's all right. Dallas heard you guys. That's what I'm speaking to.
I'm doing daddy daycare today.
It's all good.
Good job. Anyway, so the money, good question. So the money goes towards things like going out and trying to purchase email lists so we can communicate with more voters. We have to have insurance for all of our events. So like the state party itself purchases an insurance package, for example. And we actually cover the insurance for all of our county chapters across the state when they have events. Anytime they're going to have an event or go have a booth at a particular event like the state fair and things like that, there needs to be insurance in place, because the party itself is actually a private organization. it's a nonprofit organization, if you will. It's almost like a business in a sense, although it's not for profit.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, the only individual that is paid part-time at all is contractors, frankly. We don't have any actual employees on the payroll at the Oregon Republican Party. Now, if things had actually been being ran right for the last 20 years, there'd be millions of dollars in the bank. We'd have at least a dozen full-time paid employees to handle phone calls, do
Right.
social media work. I mean, the kind of stuff
You'd have employees, like you said. Right.
A professional organization, and,
Yep.
and like you have here with your podcast and your show here. But we don't have those things because of all this destructive division within, and it comes from Solomon Yu. I mean, and I'm not the only one that says this.
You know what, Dallas? I heard that. I heard that there's something with this guy, and I mean that there could be some even. So is there communism or communist wrapped up in it? I guess.
I couldn't tell you for sure, Quincy. Like when I say communist psychological warfare tactics, that's what it is. Whether someone that's using it is an actual communist or not is not relevant to me. I mean, it's relevant to some folks, and I get why it would be relevant. But to me, I'm really not as concerned about why someone does something, because that's usually assumptions, right? Like only God knows the heart.
Okay,
Granted,
right.
They're just really, they're really bold and honest about who they are. But again, people can appear to be bold and honest about who they are, and they could be complete liars.
Right.
That's the kind of people I think I'm dealing with here. So I'm looking at the results of what someone does.
So there's still they or he or whatever is still playing those type of things that you said, the psychological stuff. It's still involved in the party.
He's a master at it. I mean, I'll give the man credit. He's brilliant. I mean, that's the scary thing. The man is truly brilliant. He is cold and calculated. He's like a master chess player. He doesn't have his fingerprints directly on virtually anything. Like for the folks listening, just so you know my history, I'm a high school educated nobody. I'm a farmer. Like I worked in a pizza shop, scrubbing the bathroom floors, scrubbing the mats, doing the dirty work for everybody. And I got my former employer at Dakota Street Pizza in Sutherland, Oregon can attest to that. Like I'm a nobody. My dad's a successful small business guy, but he's just a high school educated guy. That's who my mom was. All my grandparents were working class people, farmers, ranchers, mill workers. We're nobodies. I think my family is great people, but we're not Bill Gates. You know, we're not the who's who crowd, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been difficult for me to know how to deal with a guy that is this cold and calculated. Like I grew up being extraordinarily naive about what the world was really like. I grew up in a family out in Looking Glass, Oregon, 10 miles or so west of Roseburg. Roseburg's a small town. Looking Glass is a postage stamp. We're not a town. We're a drive-through valley. It's a beautiful, wonderful place with like amazing people in it. It's so amazing that my Aunt Shikako, who's born and raised in Japan, her parents migrated to came to this country after she got married decades ago. They came to Looking Glass a couple times when she was visiting with my uncle, our family, and her parents said they wanted to be buried in the Looking Glass Cemetery, a place they've been to twice, not in Japan, in the Looking Glass Cemetery. That's just how wonderful of a place it is. And so I can admit I am Boy Scout, pathetic, naive about how evil the world is. But I've seen some stuff now in almost 8 years in Salem, and I'd like to still believe I'm the same guy I was when I entered there, but it's not without its scars. And now I've had to deal with people that like, when they lie, nothing flows smoother off the tongue than when they're lying. Mm-hmm. The truth is not in them. And what's really hard for a guy like me is to be able to explain it to people to where they actually can see it and for what it is. Because these people I'm dealing with, I mean, they just twist it around. Everything gets twisted around. You saw it in that meeting. I wish your listeners and your viewers.
I know. I wish I could have streamed that. Trust me, I wish I could have streamed that.
Everything twisted. Everything that was right, factual, and simple, they twisted, did they not?
Yes, they did. It was nuts. It was nuts. It
was crazy. And so that all comes from that guy.
It was just the arguing, like every single thing. Like, I mean, I understand debates. I get a debate, but a debate is also meant to educate. And they weren't allowing you or the people, the faction that they were disagreeing with, they weren't allowing you guys to even explain. They were interrupting. Like, while you guys are trying to explain and share stuff, they're sitting there yelling at you guys.
Well, it's the broader issue, right, in America right now. Like 24/7 media is destroying this country.
Yep.
Because it was like watching CNN
Yes.
have an argument with Fox.
Yes. Yes.
It was just about dominance
Within their own party.
Right. And that's the thing. That's why I say, like, in a fallen world where sin nature is dominant in all of us, unless you're really fighting it, right? Like, you have to fight it every day. The fight's never over to overcome self-interest, self-serving, fallen nature, right?
Right.
Well, in our culture now, you said the word debate, right? Well,
Right.
so debate to me is supposed to be two individuals or groups coming together, like honest debate. Debate that is founded in righteousness would be two individuals or groups coming together to work their way to find the truth.
Right.
Not I win and they lose. The only way we win is if we actually respect each other, talk about facts, leave personality aside, and just find the truth, whatever it is. Like, fear of what the truth is has to leave. Otherwise, it's not a debate. It's just an argument. What you witnessed and what we witnessed there is just a hardcore street fight argument. And nobody wins, at least not in my opinion. Now, the people that won, they dominated.
Right.
So they consider that a victory. I consider that a great loss. If my side would have had to do that to win that day, that would have been a loss. Because there was no respect, not at least from one side.
Right. There wasn't.
No. And it wasn't about the facts. It was just it. I'll admit to you, by the time that meeting was over, I was confused. I mean, think about that. I've been doing this for a long time. It takes a lot to get me confused. I was more so confused about, like what you said, the governor's thing. I had committed that I would not run for higher office if they elected me to be chairman unless they, the delegates, voted 77+% in favor of me running for that higher office, whatever it was at the time in the future, and I would then leave the chair position. I mean, what more can I give people?
Right.
And I don't know if you remember that one of the gentlemen from their faction in the front row jumping up and saying that, what is your word to us? It doesn't matter to us.
Yep.
Now, that statement right there, I felt like that said everything about who these people are.
Right.
When a person's word doesn't mean anything to them or about someone else, do I really need to say anything else?
You don't need to say nothing else. It's done after that.
So they went ahead and had this big, chaotic, crazy, yelling, screaming mess that it ended in them voting to not vote.
Right.
That was the conclusion. They voted to not vote. And, you know, that's what, frankly, took my strength away and broke my spirit more than anything. I can handle that there's evil people in the world.
Right.
I can deal with that reality.
Yep.
I can even handle that I'm going to have to face it on the left and some from the so-called right. I don't consider them conservative. I consider them just individuals wearing a Republican jersey, but are actually something else. But what I can't take, Quincy, is when the people that I know love me and actually know who I am and believe in what I believe in and know that I am truthful about what I am and what I represent.
Right.
Just sit there kind of silent and just let it all happen. Like, you know, like there comes a point where I'm not getting any good things done because if people aren't willing to stand up with you and fight with you for the greater good and the truth, then to me, like I told my wife, I said, you know, I actually think I'm a fool because I can't beat everybody. Like, what's the point? Like, yeah. So, are you still there? Did I lose you?
Yeah, I'm still here, fixing the camera. I have a couple questions I want to ask you get to because I don't want to keep you all night long, of course. So, let me ask you this. Where's the question? I have it pulled up here. How does Solomon make? Go ahead.
By the way, if I could, real quick.
Yes.
Those folks continuously accuse. I need people that are going to be watching this stuff develop from your audience, and they may get involved and fight the good fight for freedom and God-fearing principles. To just remember this. The accusations that they constantly levy against me, I continuously prove them wrong. And I would hope for those of you who really do the research that matters to you at some point. Because when someone is continuously accusing others and the facts never back it up and the person they're accusing never actually does the things that they say that he's going to do or whatever, I hope that matters at some point.
Right.
I mean, I hope they can use credibility at some point.
It should. And I mean, And like I've told you before, you're a stand-up dude. I mean, like when you did what you did back in 2019 inside the Capitol when they were talking about masks and all this type of jazz, and you stood up there in that session and you took off your mask and you walked out of there. That, I mean, no, a lot of people don't do that. Our representatives don't ever have the back of we the people. And then you actually came outside of the Oregon State Capitol and talked to all the people who were outside. And even at that point, there were some people who didn't even want you out there, but you still had the guts and courage to come out there to address the crowd and at least try to tell folks like, hey, you guys at least have somebody in here who has your back. And that took some boldness to do on two. So
if you want to be hated in politics, try to stand up for what is right, regardless of whose side it's for or who you're going to be against or whatever. If you want to be hated, like, stand against the power.
Right.
Stand against the media. Stand against the mob.
Right.
Like, if you want to be hated, do what I've been doing.
Yes.
But, I can honestly tell you this. I don't regret a single decision I've made. Have I made stupid statements at some point or another that I'm like, man, I wish I could take that one back. I didn't mean that, or I wasn't well informed on that. Yeah, of course. But the stances and the choices I have consistently made through my legislative time in office and whatnot, I don't regret. The only one I will say I regret was I voted yes on a bill that I was too willing. This is back when I was really suffering from Stockholm syndrome or battered spouse syndrome with the Democrats still, meaning like you start to cater to your abuser.
Right.
Because you don't really have any other option after a while. And I was so desperate to make things happen for my people back in my district that I was trying to appease the people that are abusing us in the Democratic majority. And I voted yes on a bill that I really just morally did not feel good about. It didn't seem terrible, but because I knew who my Democrat colleagues and the people that support them are, I was somewhat confident that they would pervert that in our school system and make it into something other than what it was supposed to be. And those are the kind of things I bitterly regret. Why? Because I didn't have the courage in that moment to just do what was right, regardless of the consequences. So don't ever do the same thing, folks. Always do what you believe in your soul is right, regardless of the consequences. That is the only way to go.
That's good. That's good. So let me ask you regarding Solomon. How does Solomon make so many decisions and influence the way he does?
Well, he doesn't directly make it. I'll be honest with you. Like, this is the strangest situation I could ever come up with. If I hadn't lived it myself, I'd be like, what kind of a cheesy, book did this come out of?
Right.
He doesn't have a lot of direct influence from like a vote standpoint. He has an equal vote to in those meetings like you saw on February 5th.
Right.
That's where he has an equal vote to all the delegates in the room, which is about 130 to 140 of us there, right?
Uh-huh.
Like in that moment, as the chairman, my vote is equal with everybody else in the room in those decisions we're making. So he doesn't have a lot of direct influence by his position alone. Where his brilliance as a tactician and a divider and a conqueror comes from is his indirect influence. As best as I can see, he has recruited certain personalities, and I'm not saying he's like combing the streets of Portland or, downtown Baker City.
Right.
I'm saying as people just are drawn like moths to a flame to like the political environment, just like Salem in the state capitol, the House and Senate, governors, whatever, it draws a certain kind of personality type dominantly to certain types of industries or groups or social experiences and whatnot. And so in this case, I think a lot of these people come to him from the standpoint that he looks across the room at some of these meetings and he's got a certain personality type he's looking for to fill a certain role in this kind of a network of tactics to divide from within. And then he brings them close. They become accepted. He's this very well-dressed, very intelligent, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Appears to be very wise. And he, in a lot of ways, Mr. Yu is the embodiment from a superficial standpoint of like a guy that's got it all together. And they're not wrong in a lot of ways, but his intentions is where it comes crashing down. And so I liken it to frankly, a jihadist recruiter. What are jihadist recruiters known for? They look for young men and women who are socially expelled from society for some reason or another, social awkwardness, something about their family background, maybe they've got a felony in their background, whatever it is, they're not being accepted by their family or their community or their society as a whole, and they are desperate to be embraced by somebody. And this is where I start to have a really hard time covering up my anger about guys like him, because it takes a special level of sick to take advantage of people who are that desperate to be loved and accepted by somebody and to use them as weapons of war against good people. And that's what happens in this kind of stuff. And I got to be honest, like I'm a little nervous to talk this openly about this kind of stuff because it's recorded. And I mean, you know, I have a family to protect and I don't want to be sued into oblivion, but I'm just not quite smart enough to keep my mouth shut when I know there's something really wrong that is crushing the future of my kids and your kids.
Right.
This has got to be fixed. This guy is brilliant on a really dark level.
Well, and that's the thing. And again, we the people, we need to know this type of stuff. We need to know what's actually going on in the party we continue to vote for blindly, like you said, even being naive. We need to know who these people are, who the key players are, what's going on. Because what you and I have been talking about over the past hour is, you know, really like February 5th, obviously you resigning as chairman, but it's even deeper than that. And you know that. Like you said, you've been dealing with this stuff for a long time, and I'm just scratching the surface. You know, with like talking about February 5th and what I experienced, that's just the surface. We haven't even really got into what you have really dealt with from your own party, your own people. We haven't really touched that, you know. So, you know, I think we deserve to know what's really happening because a lot of people's eyes have been woken up to things.
Well, I am always willing to aid the effort of fighting for freedom and I mean, I'm just going to say it, Christ-like principles and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But I need the people to show me that, like, they want to be deep enough to tune out the media.
Right.
Like, quit watching Fox News, folks. I'm begging you. And I say Fox because we know everything else is absolute trash.
Right.
But we kind of like, Fox is all right, right? No, I'm here to tell you they're not.
Right.
I've been the focus of Fox News. I've been the focus of CNN. I've been the focus of MSNBC over the years. You know, even though I'm just a small town nobody, I have a habit of winding up in things that are really explosive and whatnot. When we had the big deal over in Eastern Oregon, I can't remember what they call it anymore. The Eastern Oregon standoff deal in, oh gosh, that's terrible how old I'm getting. With Mr. Bundy and the protests. And
oh,
stuff
yes, the Bundy Ranch thing, yes.
In Burns, Oregon. So I was the only elected official in the state up to the point I got there, House, Senate, Congress, whatever, that actually went over there in person to try to de-escalate that thing. Now, after I had went, some others followed because they were from that region, representing that region, and it was just so absurd that the guys that were actually elected to represent that region in Congress and in the House and the Senate here in Oregon had not actually went to try to de-escalate this thing. I go over there to try to de-escalate it, to try to get these guys to go home. Whether I'm for what they're there for or not was not relevant to me. I didn't want people to kill each other. We had federal and state police, county police there, as well as American citizens that were there protesting that were very likely at a certain point to just start shooting it out, and blood was going to be everywhere. And for full context, I was only about a month past the Umpqua Community College shooting that happened in my own hometown just a month prior, 2 months prior, where 10 individuals were murdered in one 20-minute span. And I had seen the national media come in. And this is where I'm getting back to Fox News and whatnot. I had seen what national media was like, up front and personal. I had seen President Obama coming in from the clouds in the I can't remember what they call them, Osprey helicopters or whatever. I mean, it was a sight. Like I can honestly tell you, as some small-town farm kid, watching the President of the United States come in from the sky, it was like, oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. I was watching reality bending around this thing. It was surreal. It was like I wasn't in reality anymore.
Right.
And watching the national media turn my community upside down for ratings, when we've got blood in a classroom of 10 innocent people who've been murdered, and to watch them, like a bunch of sociopath serial killers, just exploit the pain and misery of my community. It was so fresh in my mind, I couldn't hardly sleep at night. And then I see in my own home state, on the eastern side of the state, this situation blowing up, where to me, again, it didn't matter what the situation started from. It was now this explosive conditions building, and the national media was the core of all of it. I'm here to tell you the politicians are puppets for the media. And I'm not saying like they're calling us and saying, hey, you should say this and you should do this. Now, I'm sure some of that happens with some of these empty inside people. But what I'm saying is from Nancy Pelosi to Kate Brown to Joe Biden to even Donald Trump in some situations, we're all being, and even me, we're all being shoved around feeling like we got to say certain things, do certain things and whatnot that go against conscience and logic and common reason, because the national media and even the local media at this point is so filthy horrible in the fact that they just want to generate clickbait headlines. They don't care if your children die because of it. Look at what's going on in Ukraine right now.
Right.
My gosh, the national media seemingly wants us to have a nuclear war.
Right, right.
That's how sick these people are. They want you to watch TV so they can sell pharmaceutical ads so bad that they're willing to hype up whether Putin's going to push the red button.
Right, right.
That's so the kind of people we're dealing with.
Right. My camera keeps shutting out, which is fine. So I, for whatever reason. So let me just ask you.
You look better than me, so we should shut down my camera. And leave yours
I don't know about that. Obviously, it's shutting down for a reason. So check this out. So let me ask you this. What is your advice for any new person pursuing seats within the party who are like you?
Well, I mean, the book of Proverbs in the Bible, you need to read that all the time. You need God's wisdom, honestly. Like, this is a storm that few can survive. Mm-hmm. And even the most diligent warrior of Scripture is going to feel confused and discouraged and destroyed often through this kind of stuff. I can tell you, I do. But if I didn't have Proverbs and the Bible to just, and I listen to it, there's this app called the Word of Promise. You can get it on, what's that app on Amazon called? Audible. You can get it on Audible. You can get it on the App Store. It's beautiful. It's the New King James Version, which is a very understandable English translation. And it just, every person in the Bible, from little children to the widow, to the king, to the giant, to Satan, all to Jesus, has their own independent voice actor. And it just brings the Bible alive in a way that is just so beautiful, you just can't believe it. Anyway, so for those of you who want to go fight for God and country, you got to have God with you. And so You need to listen to that, read that Proverbs day in and day out, and then go into that situation with your eyes wide open. You need to get involved as a precinct committee person. Right now, the deadline has passed to sign up and be voted on with your name on the ballot right now in your local area to be a precinct committee person. But you can actually still go out and get your name written in. And typically that only takes 10 to 20 people, like family members, friends, neighbors, and whatnot, writing your name in, 10 to 20 of them, and you will get elected. And then from there, like, I'd ask you to do this. Everything we've been talking about right here, it tends to get the soul stirred up, and it gets us all freaked out, right?
Yeah, it does.
And that's justified. But here's the thing. There are a lot of really good people in the Republican Party. There's way more good people than not. There's way more servant-hearted, loving people in there than not. Mm-hmm. This faction that's been destroying us from within, Quincy, is only 30 to 40 strong across the whole state.
Right.
But yet there's close to 3,000 registered PCP volunteers. And so I'd ask you to go in with a heart to serve. Don't allow people to abuse you. If someone becomes abusive in your circle, if you're involved in your local county's Republican Party, distance yourself from them. Go find people that are common with you in the sense that they love people, they're kind, they're respectful, they actually want to do work versus just giving their opinions. People that just want to give opinions and really seem to enjoy the arguments, you need to distance yourself from them. It's not good for the soul. It's tempting, especially if you're passionate about this stuff.
Right.
to want to continuously engage people like that. But if you're actually there to help our children have a better future, just try to distance yourself quietly and respectfully. You may not even have to say anything to them. Just going to distance myself from that person, and I'm going to go help Jane Smith over here, because Jane Smith is here to do the real work. She's kind, she's loving, she's respectful, and she wants to go help us recruit candidates to run for school board next May of 2023, that is.
Right.
She wants to help us train candidates to run for school board, find sign locations, those kind of things. The battle for the heart of America and Oregon is our school boards, because it's our children. That's what I'm asking you, good men and women out there in this good audience, to do. If you want to go get involved, please focus on the school board stuff. And if for some reason you find that the current culture in the Republican Party in your local area is just a bit too toxic for you, now Columbia County, those people are amazing. Douglas County, they're having some fights right now, but that's typically a party chapter that is just amazing. Josephine County's great. Coos County's got some of the greatest people you'll ever meet in your life.
Yeah.
There's some great people out there. So Deschutes County, another one. But all I'm saying is like, don't let this stuff get in your way. If something is a little bit toxic for you and you just don't feel like you can get good work done, like I started to feel, let's remove ourselves for a little bit, regather ourselves, but focus on taking those school districts back. Also, I'll say this. I'm going to take probably a good year off, because I need to. My wife and my children deserve my full focus. But there's going to come a point where I'm going to reemerge, and I'm going to try to bring forward an organization that is about, and people are going to hate this, but honestly, like let's not let the left own the English language. I want to create a safe space.
Safe space. Oh no. All right.
Right. I already lost Quincy, so everybody else just bear with me. No, I want to create a safe space for people who actually want to do real work, who actually want to help our kids find a better path, educate society, win elections for conservative, freedom-loving, pro-liberty, pro-Reagan-esque, pro-Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King Jr., values and a future for our country that's worth living. And for that to happen, to be productive, we have to have some policies and best practices right at the door when you come in that says, you will show the people in this room respect, and they will show you respect. And if you can't handle that, you're not welcome here.
Right.
And so I'm looking to bring an organization forward, not to compete with the Republicans, because they can just keep doing whatever they want to do over there. I'm still a Republican. Because between Democrats and Republicans, this is obviously the party that stands for freedom and liberty and God-fearing principles.
Right.
But I'm not going to let a dumpster fire get in my way from making sure that my children and your children have a future worth living. And so I'm going to try to do some major self-reflection over the next year, take a deep breath, get my sanity back. Because right now, I'll be honest, I'm operating about 20% of what I normally would after this last year or so.
That's crazy.
And I want to construct something, and I'd like to talk with you offline about it in the future months and stuff, Quincy. Like I want to get input from people that I've seen good things from and that I think want the same things as I do. But I want to create something that we'll essentially call the Home Depot of Get You Elected in Oregon. And the foundation of it is that we actually have a standard for who's a part of that organization. So good people like you men and women out there watching this right now can go to work to volunteer and help us take back Oregon. And when you leave from that day, you're like, instead of feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can go back to that tomorrow or next week or the next month because I just get abused. Instead, you're going to be like, I can't wait to go back because that was fun. That was constructive. That was beautiful. That's what we need to do.
Right. Well, hey, I appreciate that, Dallas, honestly, and I don't know if there's anything else that I didn't ask that you would like to say before we get off. If there is,
you didn't ask me how I make my world famous croissant ham and cheese sandwiches, but
I did not. But go ahead and please share, because I know some people would probably love to have them, like myself. So go ahead and say it.
Because I'm like my dad and I'm the cheesiest man alive, and that's kind of punish in this situation. Okay, so you go to like Fred Meyer or wherever, and you get good croissants, right? You cut them in half. You use Velveeta cheese, looks like American cheese. Get Velveeta slices. Get some ham.
Okay.
Get some turkey. Put it in the oven. Oh, and then the eggs, eggs, 50% milk, the rest is eggs. Stir it all together. Slowly cook it on the cooktop right there. Now, granted, I'm a landscaper, a farmer, and a rancher, so, go at your own risk there. But I'm telling you, it's good stuff. My kids love it. My waistline's not loving it, but it is good tasting stuff.
That's what the gym's for, Dallas. The gym.
Well, I'll tell you, it's got to be good, because as miserable as I've been lately, when I took a bite of that croissant sandwich about a week and a half ago, I was like, my gosh, this has got to be pretty close to what it's like to be in heaven. So.
Now you got me hungry. Great. Now that's what I have to go do, is go eat some food now and gain some weight. So appreciate that. Hey, man, I love having you on, and we got to do it again. And I'd love to hear what you have to say off air, on the side. So let's definitely stay in touch.
Well, and I'd love to come back some other time and let's maybe talk about something, positive and fun and good.
Yes.
Because I'm so tired of the nasty and stuff, but thank you for having me on. It's a real honor to be on, Quincy, and it's an honor to be in front of your audience. And thank you for the opportunity to just kind of shine some light on this, because it is critically important that the children of God and those who love freedom shine light on the evil, and then we need to do something about it.
Let me ask you one question real quick, 2 minutes. There's a convoy happening on March 18th in Salem, I'm sure you're aware of. Are you willing to speak at that?
Yeah, I mean, if that's what you want me to do, I'll do it. I'll admit to you guys, though, I'm a pretty shattered individual.
If you need some time, I completely understand. If you need some time, that comes first. Honestly, that comes first. And he hung up on me. No, he did not hang up on me. It's just messing around. The probably reception. And if we can't get him back online, I'll ask him off air or something. So he might have went down for a minute. So let me continue talking. If he comes back on, I'll bring him, because I only have a couple minutes. So he might have had some reception problems. Dallas Hurd, again, he's gone through some stuff, and I'm blank screen again. So I'm just going to end the stuff. I got to check up with my camera. My camera's acting up, and it's frustrating me. So I'm going to get off the air, you guys. I appreciate it. I'm so sorry. I'll get back with Dallas Hurd soon. So, again, I'll talk to you guys later. I'll see you guys in about an hour on the Now. All right, you guys?
Am I back now?
BCP. Proud of your boy. BCP. Keep preaching. BCP. Black conservative preacher. Who's he? It's BCP. Black conservative preacher. Praise Jesus. BCP. Black conservative preacher. Proud of your boy. It's BCP. Black conservative.